Hi everyone. I guess I'm hopping on here to announce that today I was officially fired from my position as a Border Services Officer with the Canada Border Services Agency. And I just can't believe the timing.
Good morning. My name is Marcel with IrnieracingNews. Today we're talking about Canada Border Service Agent McNulty. I did a story in McNulty like a couple weeks ago, and now he has been officially fired.
By virtue of the employer-employee relationship, as a Border Services Officer and as a public servant, you are subject to a duty of loyalty to your employer. I'm sorry? A duty of loyalty to my employer. First of all, if you work for the Canada Border Services Agency, you understand that this employer is incredibly abusive to its own employees, all right? I'm speaking on behalf of thousands of officers here. Incredibly abusive to its own employees. Furthermore, this agency is harassing and violating law, left, right, and center, okay? The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Canadian Bill of Rights, our Constitution. What's happening at the border is unacceptable. They've created policies and mandates that they genuinely believe supersede law, your bodily autonomy. No, unacceptable. So no, I do not have a duty of loyalty to a paycheck over the people. I'm sorry. I care about my children and the future of this country more than a paycheck.
So to start off, I'm going to read propaganda from all of the major, Canada National Post, all the bullshit, and they all read the exact same story. They pretty much just copy-paste each story on these pages, but let's go over a little bit of the propaganda and then we'll show you what McNulty has to say himself. Canada Border Service Agency is investigating one of its officers who regularly posts online videos in uniform spreading conspiracy theories about the COVID-19 pandemic and offering advice on how to skirt border measures. Since last year, McNulty has been on a crusade on social media against the C-19 public health measures, the V mandates, and now his own employer's C-19 border measures. Wednesday, spokeswoman for the CBSA, Corinne Martel, confirmed McNulty is still working for the agency but is on leave. She also said he is under investigation for his social media posts. So all of this online on the mainstream media, dinosaur media, was August 25th, August 26th. And, obviously today in September 5th or 6th, we found out he's fired. Last year, he went mostly by the nickname Mad Dad when posting online or attending anti-public health measure rallies and posting the videos online, though he also often flaunted that he worked for the Border Service Agency. But in recent weeks, Officer McNulty launched new social media pages in which he began regularly appearing in his, CBSA border agent uniform, all while ranting about C-19 and the ArriveCAN app and spreading conspiracy theories about the V. CBSA's own code of conduct requires employees to remain non-partisan, avoid expressing personal views on CBSA policy, on its employees, and on the government of Canada as a whole, and to refrain from posting photos of uniform employees. It says McNulty did not respond to a request for comments sent to his social media page. In one video, McNulty accuses the government and CBSA of committing crimes against humanity through various pandemic health measures. In many of his most recent videos, McNulty has been advising people against using the much maligned but mandatory ArriveCAN app when returning to Canada, but saying the whole process is bullshit and that travelers should ignore public health officials at the airport. He also says that people have the right to ignore requests to use the ArriveCAN app by simply saying that they do not agree to the terms and conditions of the application, despite the federal government saying failing to can lead to fines up to $5,000. They quote the CBSA, all travelers with limited exceptions, whether entering Canada by air, land, rail, or marine vessel, must use ArriveCAN unless your exemption from this requirement due to an accessibility need, reads the CBSA. So we all know the ArriveCAN app is not law. We know it's illegal to gather our information, to use it against us, to try to limit our return to Canada as a Canadian citizen. Our passport simply says what is true. We do not have to give our address or phone number. We are allowed back into Canada. The only authority at the border is the Customs Act of 1985. So the Canada Border Service agents, they are following through with the Customs Act, and they have no right or control on you entering Canada as a Canadian citizen. They have, the Quarantine Act violates your body, and we know specifically in the Quarantine Act, section 15 something, it says that they cannot have something that enters your body. They can only do checks visually and talking to you. The Quarantine Act is no reason to give up our Canadian Charter of Rights, you know, to offer this mess with the Human Rights Act. You know, all they have at the border is to dealing with taxes and what you're allowed to bring over. It's nothing to do with you being allowed back into your country. So now let's go on to McNulty and see what he has to say, guys. This is Marcel Irnieracing. I think it's September 6th today.
I just can't believe the timing of this email. I really can't. And allow me to elaborate. At approximately 8:15 this morning, I received an email from my doctor. This email, which I'm staring at right now on my laptop, has a comprehensive package that was put forth to Health Canada, supporting my application to retire on the basis of medical grounds. Okay, this application was backed with a comprehensive psychiatric report from the Royal Ottawa, as well as my psychiatrist, Dr. Rao, who used to be the director of the Royal Ottawa. This is quite unbelievable that on the same day that I put in for retirement, 3 hours later, I get an email informing me that I've been fired. The reasons in this letter to me, stating why I'm fired, they've cherry-picked sections of the Code of Conduct. So as a Border Services officer, when you get hired, you sign what's called a Code of Conduct. Essentially, I'm being fired for violating the uniform policy. For wearing the uniform and speaking into a camera without authorization. This is a very long letter, incredibly boring, so I'm not going to bore you by reading it out to you. However, there are some points that I'd like to emphasize here. Here we go. When you first joined the CBSA, you signed an oath. Yes, I did. On July 20th, false, July 21st, but okay. July 20th, 2016, to faithfully and honestly fulfill the duties that devolve on me by reason of my employment in the public service of Canada, and that I will not, without due authority, disclose or make known any matter that comes to my knowledge by reason of such employment. With your acceptance of a deployment in the Northern Ontario region on December 6th, 2019, you confirmed in writing that you understood and agreed to abide by the terms and conditions of employment, including but not limited to the CBSA Code of Conduct and the CBSA Uniform Policy. Sure. Yes, on December 6th, 2019, I did agree to those terms. However, what's in the Code of Conduct? We are tasked with upholding the Charter of Rights. So is the employer. And boy, a lot has happened since 2019, right? And like, I'm not out to lunch when I say that. Quite a bit has happened. I'm going to scroll down here because here's the next point that I want to emphasize. By virtue of the employer-employee relationship, as a Border Services officer and as a public servant, you are subject to a duty of loyalty to your employer. I'm sorry? A duty of loyalty to my employer. First of all, if you work for the Canada Border Services Agency, you understand that this employer is incredibly abusive to its own employees, all right? I'm speaking on behalf of thousands of officers here. Incredibly abusive to its own employees. Furthermore, this agency is harassing and violating law, left, right, and center, okay? The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Canadian Bill of Rights, our Constitution, what's happening at the border is unacceptable. They've created policies and mandates that they genuinely believe supersede law, your bodily autonomy. No, unacceptable. So no, I do not have a duty of loyalty to a paycheck over the people. I'm sorry. I care about my children and the future of this country. More than a paycheck. And that's it. That's it. This is why they're firing me. On the same day, let me just revisit that first point. The same day that my doctor puts forth a comprehensive package declaring me permanently disabled from a mental health condition that I acquired on the job. This letter mentions that a former regional director general had emailed me and had asked me to respond to a series of questions. And this letter says, I never responded. That's false. I did respond. I sent a lengthy email outlining my personal experience in turning to the Employee Assistance Program when I was an officer on the job battling suicidal ideation. I went to the employer's doctor, as in the Government of Canada's occupational health doctor. They reviewed my file. I was open and honest about how badly I wanted to kill myself, how I couldn't believe the reality of what was happening around me, how every day when I went to work, all I thought about was pulling that gun out of my holster and shooting myself in the head because I genuinely could not believe that this was reality. Imagine working for a full 9 months after that, on the job with a gun. Okay? And you know what? That's my fault. That's my fault, but you gotta understand, when you put your heart and soul into a career like law enforcement, you don't want to lose it. You don't want to lose it. When I realized I was losing my mind, all I thought about was my career. My fucking career! Wow. And when I was brand new, some of my greatest mentors would tell me, you gotta slow it down. You gotta stop working so much overtime. You have to start putting so much into this job because this agency will never back you up, ever. And while I am sitting here upset and I am dealing with a storm of emotion, I'll call it, at the end of the day, I'm grateful. Because I almost wasted my precious time here on earth working for what I now know is a truly evil service corporation. I don't have words. Which is ironic because I can genuinely rant and rave for hours. But I don't have words at this moment. Instead, I'm going to read a letter here. And this was written by a member of parliament. I don't want to get into political parties or any of that. I don't care. But this is a member of parliament by the name of Leslyn Lewis, and she wrote this article called ArriveCAN Might Be Illegal. Yeah, let's replace might with it is most certainly illegal. Here we go. We are currently living in a situation where Canadians are not free to enter their own country without completing a form that currently has no legal basis to exist. I'm reading this because it's a nice summary of what I've been saying. Worse, Canadians are being fined and threatened at their own border for not submitting private medical information that the government has no right to demand. No right. While the term medical tyranny is mocked by some, it is a fair description of a government that refuses to follow their own law or even the mobility rights enshrined in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The mandatory use of the ArriveCAN app, while always suspect, now seems completely unjustified in light of the fact that emergency orders have now been lifted. So there goes your Section 58 of the Quarantine Act. Ugh, sorry, I almost swore, but man, you police officers who are writing tickets and using that, stop it! Stop it. Quarantine Act does not apply. But our government insists in maintaining a quasi-emergency status in order to continue to justify this failed and potentially illegal experiment. Straight up illegal. The ArriveCAN app is Canada's travel monitoring response to the World Health Organization's declaration of a COVID-19 as a global pandemic. ArriveCAN's privacy notice clearly states that it collects personal information in accordance with the Privacy Act. While government officials and border agents pretend it is mandatory, straight up pretend, the truth is that the use should be relegated solely to emergency orders and measures taken under the Quarantine Act, which no longer apply. If emergency powers are not invoked, I believe there is absolutely no legal grounds upon which a charge can be upheld for non-compliance with the app. The two circumstances where a Canadian needs to disclose their medical status upon entry are if there's an emergency order in place requiring the mandatory disclosure of private medical information, or if there are grounds according to Section 19(1), where a health assessment can only be requested based on reasonable or probable grounds that a traveler has or might have a communicable disease or is infested with vectors or has recently been in close proximity to a person who has or might have a communicable disease. Also, the traveler cannot be subjected to any examination that involves the entry into the traveler's body of any instrument or any foreign body. According to this definition, the health assessment should largely be a discussion of any existing symptoms, and this is in Section 14(1). Perhaps the most disturbing thing about the app is that your information could be shared with international health organizations as well as their institutions. It's already happened. And here's a quote. Personal information may be disclosed to contractors working for the Public Health Agency of Canada and Service Canada, as well as to the following entities: other government institutions. That's treason. As well as provincial, territorial, municipal governments, or international health organizations, as well as their institutions for these purposes. Knowing that our government has already taken part in the World Economic Forum's Known Traveler Digital Identification Program, many Canadians are concerned about where this program is headed and what information Justin Trudeau is already sharing with groups like the World Economic Forum and other international organizations. There's a conclusion here. I'm not going to read it, but basically it says we need to get rid of this application immediately. Not only that, we need to undo the steps that have been taken to convince us that we have no rights. Outrageous. Beyond outrageous. So, them firing me and citing the uniform policy and all of that, what it comes down to is this. This is a tactic to get me to shut up. Because here in Canada, you can be charged under the Criminal Code of Canada for impersonating a peace officer, right? Putting on the uniform, saying I'm an officer. By them firing me, and they emphasize this in this letter, I'm no longer to identify myself as a border services officer because, I could get charged. Take a look at the handle. It's been ex-border cop this entire time. I've been very honest and open about the fact that I'm on mental stress leave, and for very good reasons. If I had the uniform in arm's reach, I would put it on right now. But I don't, so I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to hold on to this, and you can bet your ass, Eric Lapierre, I'll be seeing you guys in court. This is not about me. This is about making significant change in the field. Significant change. How many other officers out there right now are suffering in silence with legitimately nowhere to go? Nowhere to go. Even if you turn to the employer's doctor and you say, I held a gun to my head last shift, you can say that. All they're going to do is they're going to tell you to take leave without pay, and they're going to decide whether or not you qualify for long-term disability. They'll decide. That unto itself is enough of a hurdle. Enough of a hurdle to make someone who's suffering and on the verge of ending their life follow through and do it. I speak from experience. I know what it's like to have children, to have bills, and to not know where to go from there, right? It's about as backed into a corner as you could possibly be. And then every now and then you'll hear a story, of someone who did it. And people will say, oh, how could this person do it? A father with children, how could they do that? And you feel like the odd one out because you're sitting there going, I know exactly how they could have done it. So, it's not going to work. I'm not going to stop talking. And if they want this badge, they can come and take it. I guess I'd like to just end this by thanking everyone for your continued support. It means a lot. I am doing my best to respond to people's messages. And I'd really like to just take a minute here and thank Joe and Chris, who had me... Sorry, guys. One sec. They, fuck. They invited me to do a live with them. And, to be honest, I expected just more of the usual, right? People kind of have their platforms and they like to get guests on and just ask questions and whatever. And that was what I was expecting. And to be honest, they ambushed me with just a whole lot of love and they went so far as to raise money for me on the spot. It was so that was honestly the nicest thing that I want to say anyone has done for me in a very long time. And I think it just goes to show the power of human connection and what's really happening here. A lot of us are fearful of change. And whether you want to accept it or not, the world is changing rapidly around us. I was not meant to have this job. I was not meant to rot in that uniform until the age of 65 and spend my precious time on earth in that position. I was not. And I think for many of you, as certain things get ripped away from your lives, whether it's because you're choosing to take a stand for what you believe is right, or you refuse to participate in an experiment, or whatever it is, as painful and scary as it can be at the time when it's happening, it's all meant to happen. The things that you are not meant to have will be taken away. And my only advice to anyone who could be staring down the barrel of the exact same situation that I'm in is to release any attachment, which is what I'm doing right now. Releasing my attachment to this career. So I'd like to thank everyone who I've ever worked with, even if you were an awful example of an officer or not. Everyone I worked with had a tremendous impact on me. In my career and outside of my career. Everyone who's still in the field, I'd like to wish you all the best. And it's funny. It's funny, they mentioned in this disciplinary letter where they fired me, they mentioned that they took into consideration the fact that I've never been disciplined before in the past. But they failed to mention my 2 service excellence awards that I received within the first 2 years of working. Failed to mention the fact that as an FB2, brand new recruit, I was an enforcement leader at the port of entry of Fort Erie, right? So, I'll take my talents, my strengths, and my attributes elsewhere. And, I'll end this on a happy note. I've heard that learning an instrument can be incredibly beneficial. So I picked up a ukulele. And while I currently suck, I start lessons tomorrow. So I'll end it with that. Thank you guys. I'm sure I'll be back on tomorrow. God bless you.